morning, welcome back. This is Daybreak on Citizen Television. The hashtag on Twitter is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. Later we sample some of your feedback here on the broadcast. And with me in studio is the Deputy Minority Leader and Kathiani constituency lawmaker Robert Mbui and his colleague who represents the Uasin Gishu County Woman MP, that is, and the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Gladys Bos-Sholei, as we take stock of the major stories on the front pages of the publications. And the Standard says Kenyans look to MPs to save them from tax burden. A story further highlighted on page number 6. The National Assembly, which resumes sittings tomorrow on Tuesday with a huge weight on their shoulders. The executive is adamant that no matter what Kenyans feel, they will have their way. Wananchi say how leaders will legislate will determine whether the cost of living gets bearable or not. The president yesterday spoke in the county of Narok and will be getting soundbite to that effect, and a story here on what next for the finance bill and a quick look at one major item in the National Assembly's full in tray as it resumes its sittings tomorrow on Tuesday. The finance bill 2023 will certainly dominate the debate on the floor of the House, with public hearings out of the way, and the next step is now it coming before the National Assembly. We'll be having shortly a graphical representation of the same. And a quick look at the major item in the National Assembly's full in-tray this week is on the second reading of the bill, followed by a debate and a full in-tray which awaits the 349 members of Parliament at the National Assembly. The Finance Bill 2023 will certainly be the dominant part of the debate, with the President who will sign it into law if passed, or send it back to Parliament with a memorandum or reservations that he may have as the head of state. And this coming at a time when Kenyans have expressed concerns, and the Treasury CS is set to read the budget statement on June the 15th for the financial year 2023-2024, which is the first under the Kenya Kwanza administration, and the public hearings which were ended last week following a week-long presentations made by stakeholders who appeared before the Departmental Committee of Finance and the National Planning of the National Assembly, chaired by Molo constituency lawmaker Kuria Kimani. More than 1,000 memoranda filed with the committee, more than 900 of them rejecting the proposals as contained in the bill. On Friday last week, President William Ruto dropped the tax on content creators, saying or arguing that this has led to the monetization of content for Kenyans who are using online platforms like Facebook and YouTube. Therefore, their call was heeded after a stakeholder meeting here in the county of Nairobi. Honorable Robert Mbui, good morning, and may I begin with you. All eyes will be on Parliament, and it certainly is. It certainly will be a closed, watched proceedings by the Kenyan people and the President, well, who is another party. Yesterday he spoke in Narok County and said that what happens next will be of paramount importance to him. Which way the finance bill?
Thank you, Ayub, and morning viewers. First and foremost, let me begin from where you've just finished. The issue of the President himself speaking about what will come on the floor and how he expects members to vote. I think Kenyan legislators need to understand that the Constitution of Kenya 2010 is very, very clear about the roles of members of Parliament. And one of those roles under Article 95 is representing the people. And I want to advise my colleagues, because I've had a few from the Kenya Kwanza side, insisting that they will do what the President asks, that they actually do not represent the executive, but they represent the people. I mean, it's only the National Assembly in Kenya that represents the people. So it's very unfortunate when, when the President gets to meddle in affairs of the National Assembly, because members of Parliament should listen to the voice of the people that voted for them, and then do the bidding of the people, because that's really what the Constitution envisages. It's unfortunate that the President says he'll be watching very keenly to see how people vote. And there's been also veiled threats that, depending on how people vote, maybe that is how development will be taken to the areas. The Constitution is also very clear. We must develop every part of the country. There are people who are making it sound like Kenyans have not been paying taxes. Okay. This bill It's not the first bill on taxation. Every year we have a finance bill. This is only one of the very many. And the only thing we are complaining about is the increase in the number of taxes, the increase in the amount of money that Kenyans will be paying, the reduction in the disposable income of our people. That is what we are complaining about. So it's unfortunate when I listen to the president, when I listen to the deputy, I am shocked. You know, the kind of dictatorship that this country is slowly going towards. So otherwise, for me, I think I would like to urge the Kenya Kwanza members of parliament, be objective, listen to the voice of the people that you're supposed to represent, do the bid of the people. After all, in another 4.5 years, we'll be going back to an election. And I can tell you, Kenyans will not forget. They said that it is going to be painful, they will complain and make noise for a short while. The Kenyans will not be making noises. They will be taking stock of those people that will vote against them. Those people will make their life unbearable. Those people will make them unable to put food on the table. And in a few years, they will vote them out. Okay,
when you talk about the president, I'll come to you, Honorable Shule. When you talk about the president's call to members of parliament, clearly there is the blue waters between the executive and parliament. Then do you doubt the capacity in thinking, the capacity of conscience, the capacity of understanding from your colleagues in the Kenya Kwanza administration in voting whether the way the public wants and the way the president wants? Therefore, why do you doubt them?
You know, Ayub, I am only talking about, and I was very clear, I said a few members. I've had a few, not many. A few have been very clear. You had the whip. You were saying that they'll pass this whether we like it or not. You've had, a number of them have made comments to the extent that they will do what the president is saying, which is unfortunately very wrong, because you're not supposed to be elected so that you can go and have another boss that tells you what to do. You are elected so that you can do what the people are saying. And Ayub, let me say this. Constitutionally, Article 10 says that any bill, any motion, anything that we do, any policy, we must subject it to public participation. And the public is those people that vote for us. And the public, over 90%, through memoranda, through presentations to the committee, have said we are rejecting this finance bill. So any member that will go and support it is also operating unconstitutionally, because it's not supposed to be people participating in public participation for hot air. They are supposed to participate so that their views are taken into consideration. So if the voters are telling you, do not hurt us anymore, why would you go and vote in support? So I'm just urging my colleagues in Kenya Kwanza, let us vote with our conscience. You know, we are going through harsh economic times. We cannot punish Kenyans any further. Okay, we will talk about the people, because they are equally a key pillar, and the president on Thursday, when he led the country for Madaraka Day, talked about the people of Kenya and how the constitution vests power in them. Honorable Gladys Boschole, coming to you, the president yesterday said, I'll be waiting to see that MP who will vote against the bill. I'm waiting to see, he said, where they will stand so that we know who are against our plan, which we sold Kenyans during the campaigns. We cannot be the people of deceit. He spoke in Narok West constituency. Your vote for or against?
I will vote for the finance bill.
Why?
Okay, let me explain first of all. You just said that Kenyans are looking to MPs to alleviate the tax burden. When you say Kenyans want to the tax burden alleviated, you must first define which Kenyans are you talking about. Because let me put it for you very clearly. One, the duty that has been increased is on certain products. Imported steel, imported cement products, imported fertilizer products, imported paints, imported furniture. Why is it that we are putting tax on those items? So that we can now be able to increase local manufacturing. We will manufacture steel locally, cement locally, fertilizer locally, paints locally, furniture locally. What does that do? It gives jobs. It's about job creation. So don't confuse it. So no hustler is being taxed. We are taxing imports in order to create jobs, or else we are employing the children from China, from other countries, instead of employing our own children. So yes, this is the most patriotic thing to do. In fact, it's a hustler-driven tax, which is not being borne by hustlers. It's being borne for the importation. For example, there is also import tax has been increased for fish, imported fish. Are you telling me that the people around Lake Victoria will be happy to have allow for us to leave the don't put the tax so that we can open the floodgates, which has already happened, of imported fish, so that they can lose their livelihoods? That is the question I will be asking the members of parliament from around the Lake Victoria region. It is this increased tax is to protect the ordinary hustler who fishes around Lake Victoria. So let's wake up, Kenyans, and let's stop agreeing that we are being lied to by leaders who, because belong to a different political divide, want to make the current government look bad. Yet they are being dishonest to their people. When we talk about the Housing Development Fund that will be raised, remember the people who will pay that money, which is a maximum of 5,000 for the 2,500,
capped at 5,000.
No, because the 2,500 is from the employer, it's not from you.
Yes, yeah.
Exactly. So let's call a spade a spade. It's 2,500 shillings max being paid by Honorable Mbui here, right? He'll pay 2,500 so that those people living in slums in Kibera can have decent housing. Because it cannot be morally correct that me as a leader is refusing to donate 2,500 shillings so that the people in Kibera can have housing that has water, that has sanitation, that their children can have safe playing space and can have electricity, that their children can do their homework in the evening like our children. So I think let the leaders who are opposing the finance bill tell me that they are happy for people to live in Kibera and Mukuru and Njenga, and if it is in Wasingishu, it's in the bad housing in Munyaka, Huruma, Langas. It is wrong. So yes, I will vote yes because I am happy to pay 2,500 shillings so that other Kenyans, the people who vote for me, the people who queue for hours so that I can be in this privileged position, can have housing. Let me continue. Yes?
I'll give you the time you finish up.
But there's one thing that's very important. He's raised the issue of public participation. I want, again, we cannot be dishonest. The public participation undertaken by the Finance Committee on this finance bill is the highest consultative process in the history of Parliament. You know why? It took 9 days. They had 183 presentations, 1,600 memorandas, and I think about another almost 200 individuals, not institutions, because the 183 were institutions, individuals appeared before the committee. They actually proposed some changes. For example, the one you're talking about, the content creators, reducing tax for content creators in order to promote, to monetize the talent. They met, and the changes have been made, and that report will come before the housing. When you say that we've increased the taxes have been increased on alcohol advertising and betting advert, how is that affecting the hustler? You know? In fact, then when you look at on human products, human hair products, wigs, cosmetic products and wigs and so on, those are luxuries. The hustler does not afford those things. So we are doing this to raise money so that we can be able to create, to transform the economy so that the hustler can have a better life. So actually what is happening at the moment, all these wealthy people who are comfortable are afraid of paying tax, but they are telling the hustlers, "Nyinyi ndio mtalipa tax." No, it's us. So we are using the hustlers to fight our war.
Okay.
No.
Well noted. I just want to because I need some clarifications on some of the submissions made by Honorable Gladys Boschole. And in your first list, you talked about the taxation. Actually, imported steel, imported cement, imported fertilizer, imported paint, imported furniture. Which then will definitely inform, and I agree with you, makes the country resource mobilized, export-oriented economy, which will create jobs and affect our economy positively. And you came on the second point of the housing, and you said,
and fish, imported fish.
Okay, which will of course be beneficial to our fish farmers.
Yes.
And then you came to the housing levy, which is the bone, the flesh on the part of the bone, where the president and the government extensively talked about. And you said that there's no problem in paying 2,500, 2,500. I paying 2,500. But you understand it's not the business, may I say, of the public creating employment for the Kenyan people. The public pays the taxes of the Kenyan people. It's the business of the government to create employment. And is it therefore a problem for the employed Kenyans? Is it a problem that the government is shifting unemployed Kenyans, that because there are many other unemployed Kenyans, therefore the problem is you, the employed Kenyans? Is that the communication from the government?
You, the employed Kenyans that are paying that are going to pay the levy? Yes. But you agree with me that we are already paying taxes? Of course you're already paying taxes.
Since 1963.
And everybody in all over the world pays taxes. Our taxes are far below compared to other countries. But let me tell you, we must ask ourselves, which situation is Kenya in? During the campaigns, the opposition kept on lecturing us about, we used to be like Malaysia, the Tigers, we used to be like Singapore, we had the same GDP. Kenya even lent Singapore money. And we talk about it and lament about it. But instead of lamenting, let's do something about it. What did Singapore do? They did the same exact thing. It was a slum. Singapore was one huge slum. What happened is they went on the housing project. So there was a levy. Houses were built. And the plan, and now today, 90% of Singaporeans own their own home. And it's turned now to a place that we look up to. But they didn't come there out of the blue. It wasn't magic. It was some painful decisions that had to be made. So Kenyans need to wake up that painful decisions have to be made. You've got to tighten the belt a little bit in order for us to get the dream country that we want. When we talk about the fact that why am I paying this amount and so on, you have to ask yourself that we have 7 million people living in slum, informal settlements.
Yes.
It is morally wrong. And as a country, if we have to pay a little more in order to make sure that everybody, because this is a right under Article 43, the right to decent shelter. And who do you want to come and build it for you?
It's the government.
No, where does the government get money?
But people...
No, hold on.
Okay.
You see, Ayub, and as a journalist, I think you're doing injustice to this country. Okay. When you think money comes from the skies, it does not.
Okay. Allow me.
Every amount of money that the government uses, either they borrow it or they tax us. Period. And not this country only, every single country from biblical times. From the Roman Empire.
Just hang on. I'll come to you. Some order. We'll have enough time to discuss, and this is a discourse where...
The good thing we are only two of us.
Okay.
We have the whole morning.
And Honorable Boss, you mentioned Singapore. And one of the major fundamental principles in Lee Kuan Yew's government was the war on graft that he waged for Singapore to be where it is. And that seems to be a far-fetched dream here in Kenya. No major successful corruption case in a court of law since the agency was formed. And clearly you can see, even through the Auditor General's report, how hard-earned money by the Kenyan people is siphoned and stolen by those in leadership. That's two. Have we achieved that as Singapore did? You mentioned the housing levy, about how we want to copy the Singapore model, but are we there in terms of our fight against grafts? And then two, when you talk about injustice, I mean, as a professional, I am to ask the questions and I need clear answers and I'm substantial in it. And when Kenyans pay taxes, they expect the government to create the housing, to address the housing problem. Therefore, why then do you expect the very same Kenyans who pay taxes to be deducted for the government to address another problem because they're already paying taxes? Why not utilize that money properly to address the problem you're raising, for example, like housing?
Okay, first of all, just correction. The housing levy is not a tax. It is a saving. It is money you will have access to in 7 years, in whichever format is provided for you. So first, use the correct word. It is a levy, which is a saving. In fact, it's not going to be managed by the Treasury. It will be managed the way our pensions are managed by the various companies that are professionals in doing that. That's number one. Number two, I agree. And in fact, I'm happy for Kenyans to raise the issue to say we are paying, but we want to know how our money is going to be used. We want to know that it will not be lost in corruption. That's entirely legitimate, and I'm happy that that conversation is being held by Kenyans, and we must continue. I've seen on several occasions the president has been taken on that. I saw it when you interviewed him on the media, and he said, I will take personal responsibility. And for me, what I say, when somebody has pledged to do something, don't start doubting them. Give them the benefit of doubt. So it's okay. What we say is we'll watch this space. And as parliamentarians, we're going to be vigilant on it. Because the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto plan also talks, is high on corruption. So give it a chance so that if you fail, if it doesn't work, then we can take on the head of state and say, you promised us. You said you'd deal with corruption. I'm happy that ministers are coming to parliament because you'll give us a chance to be able to deal with that. So yes, corruption is a legitimate issue. The president has said he will take personal responsibility to ensure that no money will be lost through corruption. We've seen some tough measures taken recently with the firing of PS and so on. So what I plead with Kenyans, let's not be pessimists and say, actually, let's stay paralyzed and let's stay so poor, live in the slums because we are afraid of corruption. And because we do not want to pay the 2,500. Wake up. Something has to be done. Even you, I'm sure you've gotten into some investments, grow yourself. When people like me, I know, when I bought my first home, I could hardly buy food, because I had to make the payments. Today, I own a beautiful home. Why? I made the sacrifice at that time. So as Kenyans, we must collectively agree, let's make the painful decisions now. Okay. And the other thing about the imported furniture, in the housing, it's not just about housing. It's a two-pronged thing. We're not only providing housing, it's about jobs. It's going to be, in that building site, the houses that are going to come up in Kibra, the women there will be selling food to the workers who are building, the builders. There will be plumbers. There will be electricians. There will be watu wa kubeba simiti, watu wa kubeba mawe, watu wa kukoroga. So you must understand it's a whole economic ecosystem. All right. So let us not be simplistic. Yeah. So imagine if houses are coming up in every county. Do you know how many jobs will be creating? Because every day we are complaining about jobs. Honorable Mbui, my friend here, has been on the street for Maandamano, and they say they want the cost of living to come down. Here is a finance bill that will bring down the cost of living. And it is not instant, but it's a journey to that.
And we'll talk about largely the cost of living crisis in the country.
So it doesn't happen from the street, it happens from deliberate fiscal
policy is the question, and the ecosystem that you have mentioned. Yes, Honorable Mbui, you had a point.
Yes, you know, it's very painful to listen for like almost 20 minutes of stories on PR just to make this finance bill look good. This shouldn't be an exercise in PR. We have to be very careful. Our main issue is not on those issues that the Honorable Boss Chole has raised about imported furniture, I don't know, fish. That's not our issue. We are dealing only very specifically with those areas where we feel that the cost of living will go up. Those are the issues in the finance bill that are a problem to us. So there could be some positive things. I mean, they've reduced taxes on imported helicopters. I don't know, taxes on rental payments made by landlords. That's positive for those people. But we are talking about the hustler and the cost of living. And the issue is fuel on, you know, an increase in the fuel on, and VAT levy on fuel. Increasing it by 8% automatically raises the cost of living, because every product, every service will go up. The turnover tax that is going up from 1% to 3% and being reduced to the hustler who is doing a turnover of about 41,000 a month, 1,370 shillings a day, that raises the cost of living for that person, because the cost of the goods that they are selling go up. The advance tax on public service vehicles, advance tax on the movement of vehicles movement of or tonnage by from 1,500 to 3,000 per ton. Okay. That also raises the cost of living. Excise duty on beauty products. I mean, you can't tell me that the hustlers can never, make their hair. Honestly, they do. And even the people that run those small beauty parlors, those are also hustlers. The duty is being imposed on their products. The excise duty on mobile phones. Almost everybody, even mama mbogas, boda bodas, they do their business on mobile phones. You raise them by 10%, the cost of mobiles go up, then it becomes difficult. So our issue is not everything
it's
but
not
those
on mobile
items.
Phones, it's on mobile
phones. Mobile phones. Excise duty on mobile phones has gone up by 10%. Please read the finance bill. So it is a fact that the fact is that these things are raising the cost of living. And finally, Ayub, the issue of the housing fund. The housing fund is reducing what we call disposable income of Kenyans. Because already the cost of living is so high, the value of the Kenyan shillings has dropped, not only because of the cost of, the value compared to the dollar, but also inflationary pressures. So what happens is that 1,000 shillings, what he could buy a few months ago, now it's gone down to about 500 and something shillings. And then the little money that people remain with, you want to take part of it and tell us you want to build houses for us? Look, let's be honest. Government should be dealing with issues that
2,500 shillings.
2,500 shillings.
Yes, say that. That will make you suffer.
Now, let me tell you, I'm not against paying it myself. I am against the hustler struggling to make that.
The hustler might pay. Some people pay 300 shillings.
Yes. Allow me to demystify this thing, because there is all these stories that it's something about those people with salaries and those without salaries. And this story of dividing Kenyans started even before the elections. They told us it is hustlers versus dynasties. After the elections, immediately they told us it is the shareholders versus the non-shareholders. Now they're telling us, it's those with salaries versus those without. The people with salaries are taxed already. We talk as if Kenyans haven't been paying taxes from independence 60 years ago. We have been paying taxes. What we are saying is this: issues of personal houses is not a government issue. Government should deal with issues that are public. I'm telling you, it's shocking for us to be talking about building houses for people when our children in junior secondary school do not have classes for grade 9. Okay. Our children in junior secondary schools do not have laboratories for doing those subjects that have been introduced. Okay, Honorable and then you want to build houses for us?
Okay, Honorable Mbu, you say that it's not your responsibility to build a house for another person. Of course, all of us do pay taxes. But this is what your party leader said in the build-up to the elections, and this was part of your manifesto. On the housing levy, Odinga said, this was in May, more than a year ago, he said that was a very good policy. I want to revive it, where an employee will be contributing 1.5% and the employer 1.5%. That will go into a pool of funds that can enable us roll out massive housing development in our country.
And he spoke during the opening of the...
Hang on, Honorable Shule, to put the record straight, I am the speaker here for today. So, Honorable Mbui, your party leader, the coalition party leader, also had this at heart. But he doesn't have the mandate of Kenyans. Hypothetically, if you were elected to government,
you'd be doing the same thing.
How would you have done it differently? What will be your modus operandi? Would it not be building a house for another person, as you have just said?
No, for me, I'm talking for myself. I don't support the idea.
Well, Honorable Shole supports the idea because it's... Okay.
And I think, Ayub, that's where we go wrong, because...
can we get it clear, Honorable Mbui?
Yes.
He ran on that manifesto.
I want to clarify this.
He ran on that manifesto.
I want to clarify this. I am elected by the people of Kadhiani constituency to...
Based on a manifesto.
Okay. And I'll tell you this. Even in the last parliament, when we were operating in a handshake government, there was a time when the finance bill came and it was introducing an 8% tax on fuel. I rejected it. I am talking for myself. I sit here and I sit here today to speak for myself and the people that I represent, because I know Article 95 gives me the mandate to represent the people of Kadhiani constituency. Okay. And the people of Kadhiani constituency, anything that will hurt them, I will oppose.
Okay. And this was in a manifesto because you sought power, isn't it?
Yes.
And because you go to the Kenyan people, you are subject to yourselves. It's then the Kenyan people who are called that mandate to have a crop of leaders to govern over them, for we are a constitutional democracy. If you are in government for the purpose of this debate, and this matter would be part and parcel of the Azimio government, say, for that matter, if you were elected in August last year, that is, Would you support it?
Now, let me tell you what we would do, and that is what is supposed to happen. We would subject it to the public participation that it has been subjected to. And Kenyans would give their opinions. You notice that there was one of the items that they had proposed, the one on digital content monetization. And the president himself said, now, because we are seeing pressure on this one, we will remove it. We would have subjected it to public participation. Over 90% Kenyans have said we do not want this tax on housing. So we would listen to the voice of the people. You know my leader, right, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, listens to the voice of the people. In fact, the reason why you find us in the streets is because the people are asking us to speak for them. So I would say we would subject it to the public participation, and the public has already given an opinion. That opinion must be respected. Okay, and so I can tell you, as Azimio would have respected the voice of the people.
So if the people tell you to abandon it,
if the people say we don't want it, and in fact, let me tell you, Ayub, if we talk about this housing levy, we'll talk about how can it really work. You know, some of these things are far-fetched. They're good ideas, but when you put it on the table is when you realize this thing can't really work as we are being told.
We'll talk about it much more here on the broadcast. Honorable Shole, I'll come to you, and Honorable Mbui here on the broadcast when we get back from the break. This is Daybreak on Citizen Television. The hashtag on Twitter is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. When we get back from the break, the discussion continues here on the broadcast. Stay tuned.